Okay, we're about a minute or two after 3 p.m. on Tuesday, January 26th. Some more people are still coming in. I'll let them in as the talk begins here, as the seminar begins. But I'd just like to welcome everyone. Hello, I am John O'Brien from the Keystone Contractors Association, and really thrilled, excited for today's event. You know, back in 2020, we experienced something that hopefully we never have to experience again. And it involved a major shift in the way that we protect our workforce. And we really put our safety directors and our safety people to the test to come up with awesome solutions and, you know, like I said, protect our workers. Just a brief little story about kind of how we got this panel and kind of the mindset behind it. So bear with me a minute or two here. Back in mid-March of 2020, you know, Governor Wolf issued his shutdown order of non-essential businesses. At that point, you know, healthcare projects could resume and all other construction projects were shut down. Our initial first thought was, hey, let's get a coalition, a strong coalition together. Let's lobby the state government and let's reopen our industry and get our workers back in the field, get them working and doing what they do best. And that's building Pennsylvania. So we assembled a strong labor management coalition. And over the weekend, that was like March 16th, 17th, whatever. And then over that weekend, we drafted a nice little letter addressed to Governor Wolf and a lot of the leaders. And the day before we're getting ready to send it, you know, we had some second thoughts, and a lot of our leaders on both sides, the contractor side and labor, said, hey, are we doing the right thing? You know, there's a lot of unknowns at this present day back in March. We don't even know what COVID is or coronavirus, don't know how deadly or serious it is. Should we really be pushing our workers, you know, to get out in this environment? So we put the brakes on lobbying to reopen, but we knew the industry would open sometime in the near future. So we really devoted a lot of attention to creating a safety plan, because we wanted to keep our workers safe. And because it was myself that presented the plan to the legislature and the governor's office, a lot of people thanked me, but you know, the true brains behind the operation are the panel that you're going to hear from today. And especially our moderator, Bob McCall from the Master Builders Association of Pittsburgh. That was Bob's kind of brainchild. He called me and said, hey, what if we have like a big coalition to create this safety plan and get a lot of people to work on it and really get the best practices? So we put together those guys put together an awesome plan. A lot of contractors used it. When Governor Wolf announced he was going to reopen the industry, he actually quoted this plan and said, I'm going to base the state's construction guidelines on this safety plan. You know, so kudos to Bob for that idea and getting it going. And, you know, like I said, the panel helped out a lot with a lot of good suggestions and good safety procedures that need to be in it. And then going forward, LNI and DCED hosted numerous meetings throughout the year and what can construction do better, those type of sharing sessions. And, you know, Bob and the other panelists, Tom Scott, Tracy, Darren, Rech, and Mike Penrod, they were very instrumental in arming me and saying, hey, talk about this or talk about that, you know, when I would go to these meetings. So, you know, I feel honored presenting these guys. They're awesome. They got the industry reopened and they deserve all the credit. So thank you guys so much for your work this past year, and there's more to do. You know, the virus is still here. So that was a long-winded intro. Sorry about that, gang, but I just want to make sure credit goes where credit is due. So thank you. And without further ado here, I thought what we could do is kind of go around the room here and have the panel introduce themselves, and just a self little, you know, minute or two introduction. Who wants to go first? Darren? Or I'm sorry, Mike, I saw a hand go up there.
Okay. Everybody, welcome. Glad to be with you guys today. I want to thank John and Bob McCall for moderating. I think it's a good panel, and hopefully we get some good information exchanged. My name is Mike Penrod. I'm the Vice President of Risk Management at Rycon Construction. In Pennsylvania, we have a Pittsburgh office, which is our headquarters. We also have a Philly office. And then we're in a few other states beyond that, but we're Pennsylvania centric today. So that's what we need to talk about. Darren?
Yeah, I can jump in, John, just to echo Mike's comments. Appreciate you and Bob pulling this thing together today with everyone. And yeah, certainly challenging times. My name's Darren Rech. I've been with Alexander Building Construction for about 8 years now in Harrisburg. And Alexander is part of the Butts family of companies in Allentown. So we have Alexander Building Construction, Butts, Alvin H. Butts, and Shoemaker out of Conshohocken. So between us three, we've been covering most of the state and continue to plug away at this COVID thing. So.
Thanks. Tom, Don, who's up?
All right. My name is Don Tracy. I'm the Corporate Safety Director for Quandel Enterprises out of Harrisburg. And I've been with Quandel about 3 years. And I'm honored to be here today.
My name is Tom Scott. I'm a certified safety professional. I work for McClure company out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We employ up to 450 union contractors, sheet metal and pipe fitters. I could say, I know I've been working with Darren and Don on different jobs, and this was probably one of the most challenging times in our lives and our careers, being faced with this. So I hope that we are able to share a lot of good information with you folks. Thank you.
So that's the panel here. And then, as I mentioned, Bob McCall is going to be the moderator. And I just wanted to add before Bob talks, if you do have questions, feel free to raise your hand, or you can submit something in the chat box there. So take it away, Bob.
Hey, thanks, John. Just to echo everyone's comments, this is great that you put it together. I think when you sent us the email, we were, talking about the vaccine being the light at the end of the tunnel, but there was still a lot of work to do before we got to the end of that tunnel, and we needed to take a step back and talk about what we've learned so far in the last, probably 10 and a half months since we've been dealing with this. I just heard today that's the 1 year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death. And I don't know about you folks, but that seems like it was 5 years ago. I mean, this year, it's just, you're so consumed with protecting yourself and others from COVID that, you just really lost track of what happened. But that's only been a year. And probably about 6 weeks from now, it will be the beginning of March, which is when COVID kind of, in my mind, became real. I was out in Las Vegas at the AGC convention and Con Expo, and really thinking to myself, people are crazy. I mean, this is no big deal. And as the week went on, we were out doing Vegas things and foolishly doing Vegas things in retrospect. But then you started seeing all the hand sanitizer stations pop up everywhere, and rumors started to spread that they were going to lock us into the Bellagio and not let us out. And, we all tried to escape Vegas while we still could, and got back to the Pittsburgh area and got to work on this right away. And John O'Brien's being pretty modest with, his role in putting together the COVID plan for the state. I mean, he was huge. And since we've got that plan in place, we wouldn't be functioning very well if it wasn't for John and his ability to get us answers from the state. So John, give yourself all the credit in the world, because you've done a fantastic job for everybody in the last 9 months. So we really appreciate that. But we're here. COVID, when it hit, all of a sudden, safety professionals had to become infectious disease specialists, which we're not really good at. But when you think about it, construction, it's kind of what we do. We take problems that are complicated, and we break them down, and we find solutions to it. And as safety professionals, that's what we do. We look at, we research our problem. We look at whatever regulations and guidance are out there that are oftentimes confusing and conflicting, and we have to go and find the right answers. And really, at that point, we have to rely on each other. And that's what this panel here today has been able to do and really all safety professionals throughout the country have been able to do that, to really open the lines of communication, and be adamant that safety is not proprietary, especially in terms of, this COVID. If somebody has an idea, please share it. when we were shut down in the middle of March by Governor Wolf, we weren't too happy about it, but in retrospect, it was a blessing for us because we got to see what the rest of the country was doing to combat this virus on their job sites. We let them make the mistakes. We learned from their mistakes and found their solutions. And we were able to, beginning of May 1st, when we were able to go back to full work, we were able to hit the ground running and protect our employees really from the start. So that was, one of those blessings in disguise that we were able to, go slowly and then really have it figured out by the time it was time to go full. So I'm just going to throw out some questions to everybody. And like John said, if you're in on the call and you have some questions, please type them into the chat, and we'll get those addressed as best we can. But just wanted to talk to the panel, and Mike Penrod, I'll start with you. I kind of wanted an update of what you're seeing with COVID. Is it the same as what we're reading in the news? It's happening in the community that we're seeing a decrease in it, and what you're seeing on the job site. As far as COVID reporting right now, more or less the same. What are we talking about right now?
Sure. Thanks, Bob. So here at Rycon, particularly in Pittsburgh, where we have a much larger labor force, kind of that post-Thanksgiving time, we were having probably 2 to 3 instances per day, and that's with a field force of about 250. That's not positives. That's 2 to 3 situations per day where we're tracing somebody's spouse or son or daughter contracted it. They were at the job site, that type of thing. And here in the last couple of weeks, we're down to maybe 2 to 3 a week, in kind of that contact tracing role, making determinations in who's on the site, who's in a testing protocol. But we have definitely seen a significant reduction, I would say, from the week or 2 after Thanksgiving to the week or 2 after New Year's. Marked improvement on our sites.
Great. What about the rest of you guys? Are you seeing the same thing as far as reduction in the instances of COVID?
I'll speak up. It really became real for me in October. That's when my first positive case hit. And then it kept raining, one after the other. Prior to that, like Mike said, it was onesie twosies here and there, not a big deal, but it really started to fly in on me after October. And I had anywhere, I'd say from 20 to 30 open cases till after the new year. And that was pretty consistent. That's a workforce of 400 to 450. And that's, again, as Mike mentioned, close contacts, sick people, people that are positive. So all those cases, again, 30 open cases at any time. And that has really started to reduce after the new year. And I saw spikes after Thanksgiving and spikes after Christmas. I was expecting one after the new year, but I did not see one.
Yeah. I think that's probably true of everything. Go ahead, Don, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was actually expecting it to be a lot worse after the holidays, because I figured many people would probably go home and do the Christmas and Thanksgiving, with the relatives thing and end up kind of bringing COVID back. But actually, we only got about a handful of people, so I was real surprised at that.
Good.
And I think we're doing a lot better job of reporting. I mean, the guys are calling me the minute they have a relative or anything else going on, and let me know, and we decide what the best route to take is.
Good. Hey, Darren, can you walk us through your contact tracing when you do get that call that somebody's been positive? I mean, what do you folks, what are you doing? Are you doing the contact tracing yourself? Are there third-party services you're using, or how are you conducting that? Who's conducting it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. We're doing it ourselves, but we're also relying on our subcontractor to sort of assist with it. And some of the bigger contractors and McClure, some of the other folks on our job site, we understand the process of close contact tracing. We do have situations where there's a smaller sub. They may not understand the whole process, or we need to explain it. So it's a little bit of both, and we continue to follow the CDC guidelines. It changed forget the exact date, but, it went from, the 15 minutes over that 24-hour period. So that kind of threw some people off, but, through educating our subs and, paying attention to CDC, we've been able to kind of work through each situation. And similar to what everyone else has been saying, our numbers have gradually decreased, knock on wood, since October. And I think a lot of that is just following our protocols, 6-foot social distance, stay away, wear your mask, make sure we adhere to those protocols. And that certainly, in my estimation, contributed to that decrease in the trends that we were experiencing late October and early November. So again, I think it's coaching. I think it's a learning curve for some of our folks. And, now we all understand what the process is. So I think it's a little bit of, concerted effort on everybody's part.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been the coaching part of it has really paid off for us in terms of, at least what I'm hearing out there. And Mike, maybe you can talk to this, but we're really not seeing a whole lot of secondary infections. When we get a report of a COVID positive, we tend to, we contact trace that, and it's usually, it originated outside the job site, but we're not seeing job site spread is what I'm getting to. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, knock on wood, that's just something that we don't really have much experience. We've had an instance or two of, we believe maybe we had an issue inside of a job trailer, a couple people, in a job trailer together. We've had a couple instances, not in Pennsylvania, down in Virginia, of folks riding to the job site together in a vehicle. But your typical everyday, we're signatory to the carpenters and laborers here, so I'll use them as an example. Your typical everyday carpenter or laborer that's coming to the job site in their own vehicle, taking break on a mud bucket, but, giving themselves plenty of distance from their coworkers. We haven't had a single instance of transmission, on the job site. On the one comment I had on the contact tracing thing, and I don't know if you guys are doing this, but in the very, very early stages of contact tracing, when I was learning how to be a contact tracer, something I found very valuable is get both sides of the story. Because you'd be surprised what one guy's interpretation of closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes is. And then you talk to the other gentleman that was with him. And, oh, what are you talking about? We were 2 feet away from each other for 10 straight hours. It's just funny how that works. But so we've kind of implemented a check and a back check and balance type system where we interview the person who has the perceived exposure or positive case. When we interview them, we take their list down, and then we talk to each one of those people we don't lead them into the question. We get corroborating evidence, basically, that, they're saying they were greater than 6 feet away. This guy's saying they were great, type of thing, because we did have a couple hiccups early on where we took one person's word for it, and, maybe somebody else didn't quite agree with that. So.
Yeah, no
To
doubt.
everybody on the call, I hope you're doing that. I hope you're getting both sides of the story.
Yeah. Hey, we had a couple questions in the chat about technology, and I'm going to get to that next. But just to wrap up contact tracing with a couple other questions, Tom, I'll throw this one to you. But when you do have somebody who's positive on your project, who handles the communication with them as far as what they have to do, how long they have to isolate, any CARES Act situations? The safety department handling that for you, superintendents? Do you have an HR department that handles that, or how you folks looking at that?
I'd really like someone else to handle it, but I handle it all. It's one of those things. It's almost like accident reporting. We safety folks we're refined. We already know this process of accident reporting and taking down details. So it just made sense that we took it, that I took it over, and I'm sure, the other guys feel the same. It just makes sense, even though we didn't want the job. But so the communication goes, and I have some lessons learned. I mean, I stumbled in the beginning trying to communicate with people when they can return to work, when they can't. days, and especially with the new change when you can get tested, 5 days after your last contact with the person, then you can return on the 8th day. But if you don't get tested on the 10th day, but at certain places only on the 14th day. So try to explain that to someone over the phone. So what I did is I developed a process where I would capture the employee's email address. I would lay it out for them on paper. I'd even include a little calendar on there. They would have their options listed, the calendar, and when they can return with their options on the calendar. So it was very visual because that's how most people see things and need to understand things. So. But we've got that process refined, unfortunately, but it's working very well. No issues from that. And you asked about the CARES Act. Again, that fell in my lap because it all kind of goes hand in hand. Guys say, well, if I can't come to work, how am I going to get paid? And that's usually their most concern. They're not worried about getting sick or what their health's going to be like. They're like, how am I going to get paid through this? So I communicate to them that information as well.
Yeah, I'll say too, one of the areas that we're really having problems with how am I going to get paid for all this is with the cohabitation now. Somebody that you live with comes down with a virus, now, the CDC is saying that you have to wait 10 days from when they started their symptoms. Our Department of Health, at least the guidance as I understand it, and please correct me because I'm often wrong about this, but they're asking us to wait 10 days after the onset of symptoms from your spouse or partner, and then you have, your quarantine starts at that point. So, when it was 14 days, guys were looking at being off work for 24 days, and they weren't real happy about that. And who can blame them, right? If they weren't able to work from home like the office people can. So that's been a real issue for folks. And I think the guys are doing their best to skirt that, which they got to make a living, and so we have to certainly be diligent with that. But Don, do you have something to say? I see you unmuted yourself there.
Yeah, I got kind of thrust into this too, and so HR did not take us over. So yeah, I'm the COVID guy, so I get all the phone calls, and my truck is a rolling COVID supply depot. Okay, and I'm anxious for it to go away. I've got my masks, my gloves, my sanitizer, my KCA, stay 6 feet apart banners. Got them all, got everything. So I'm anxious to get my truck back.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, we've been asked to do a lot as safety professionals now, and it's been challenging to say the least. Hey, let's move on to technologies, the technology issues. There seems to be every day some new help coming out that that is designed to make our lives easier with technology. Two things we have going on with contractors here in Pittsburgh are one is QR code for each individual so that they can answer the question. They scan it with a smartphone and they submit it every day before they come to the job site. If they have a smartphone, we have that. Really neat thing I heard yesterday that one of our contractors are doing, and they're actually doing it out of state, but it is the scratch and sniff cards, with the loss of smell being one of the first signs that we have. Employees come in, there's basically a deck of cards laying on the table. They pick it up and they scratch it off and hold it up to their nose. And they tell you what they smell, because on the back of the card, it says banana, strawberry, whatever. And the safety guy can sit there and say, what do you smell? And they got to answer it and answer correctly so that they're not lying to you. So that's another check that, I have to look into that. I can't imagine that it's very expensive. When you were kids, you had those scratch and sniff things all the time. But being it's COVID, they're probably $20 a card or something like that. Someone's making a buck off it. But I think that's worth looking into. But one of the questions we had, and I did see an article that some folks through GBCA in Philadelphia were using this. But for contact tracing, is anybody wearing the sensors that tell you whether or not you've been within 6 feet of somebody? Has anybody done anything like that?
We have it here at Alexander, or the I think across Blitz Enterprise we have not. Although we looked into it, and I know Tom Scott had championed some of the research on that topic, but we haven't made the move.
Yeah. Thought
I've
you have
done a lot of
information on
research. I'm sorry, Bob.
that. So you have some information on that?
I do. The wearable technology is great. In number one, it's expensive. You know, two, getting buy-in from the craft to wear it. That's the, you know, so once you buy this great tool, how do you get it to implement? You know, how do you implement it? How do you get the guys to buy into it and want to wear it? Because once you get it on them, they think you're tracing them their entire life, and you find out everything about them. So it's, you know, communication to them and try to get them to understand it. So it's great technology. And what it does is there's these little devices. It could be the very tiny little device that you can put on your hard hat, wear on your person, and it starts to beep or blink or buzz if it gets within 6 feet of another device. So it only works if everybody's wearing one. And then what it does is it can there's options in these things that like you wouldn't believe, but one of the great options is it reports back to a home-based computer where it says who you were close to. So if indeed I would come up sick and I was close to you, Bob, it would say how long, the duration, you know, what distance we were, and it would nail you down as a close contact if indeed you were. So it's great stuff. But again, the pitfalls are the expense and the craft buy-in.
For sure. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about craft buy-in later on when we get to the vaccine section. But yeah, I can understand that being an issue. So, hey, the other question that came through was, you know, when we first started this and we were doing the temperature monitoring, you know, we were lining 200 guys up and taking their temperature every morning, and it was creating quite a log jam. Plus, we were getting people congregated together, you know, before they came in, and were they staying 6 feet apart? Yeah, well, you know, let's hope. But that was a real challenge. So, question we had is, anybody moved to the infrared cameras for you know, temperature monitoring? So folks just walk by the camera, and if you have if you're hot, you know, that infrared camera's heat camera is going to pick you up. Has anybody seen that used out in the field anywhere?
Yeah, actually, we have the screen that you stand in front of, and it has an outline of your face. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. Yeah.
Use that.
Well, there's both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we use those. Anybody else using anything like that?
Yeah, we're using
This is-
something similar to the body scanner we purchased through Guernsey. It's a local vendor we've used here in Mechanicsburg, and you know, our contact, Michelle Berger, has been tremendous with providing supplies and things like that. So we bought 2 or 3 of the body scanners. You go through it once, you hit it, and you basically, it takes a couple minutes, but then when you go through the second time, it recognizes your face, and you know, you can go through it relatively quickly. So we've had 2 of those to move the contractors through, and we had one at the office to manage all the office folks coming in. And to my knowledge, you can download it to an Excel spreadsheet. And I haven't heard too much from a negative standpoint, even with the cold weather. Maybe somebody else has, but I'm not sure what the other cons are of the technology. So I think it's relatively new.
Good. Todd, did you have something to say there?
Yeah, I was going to say that, Darren, I don't know if you're familiar, but down at our shoemaker division down in Conshohocken, we're using that temperature screening that Don had just mentioned about, where you stand in front of the screen and it recognizes your face. It takes your temperature right away, and it's pretty thorough. It's pretty quick. So we've actually had some good success with that, because it did pick up a couple guys. Now, again, you know, those guys that came up with higher temperature readings, set them aside for 15 minutes, they come back, and most of them were good. But, you know, we are using that down there, and it seems to be working. Ironically, it doesn't work so well on guys who are bald for some reason. So Darren, you and I might have some problems.
Yeah. The mask seems to throw some people off too. You got to
Yeah.
pull the mask down a little bit just for that initial scanning. But yeah, it's a good point, Ty. And I think also just to dovetail off that, we have nurses who are currently taking temperatures out on one of our job sites. So this body scanner, I think for about $1,700, $2,500, we paid for it. You know, you can have someone, you know, a non-professional, I'll say, you know, doesn't have to be an EMS or a nurse or anyone. We can have somebody, whether it's a laborer or some sort of, you know, a foreman person who can monitor and just as people come through, make sure they do the right thing. If they need to stop, there's a red flag, they can address that, and then continue the crowd through the system. So it's relatively inexpensive once you get, the body scan is purchased. So I think there's some good things there. It's probably going to be here for the long run, it seems like.
Yeah,
Hey,
for sure.
Hey, Bob, may I build off what Darren said?
Please.
Some of the pitfalls with these temperature scanners, whether it's a handheld or that device, is your ambient air. And it can cause problems as far as the readings go. And we learned this on very early on, late in March, as it was still cold and some of these temperature devices were acting funny. But his team came up with a great idea of building a tent around and then putting some heaters in there. So because how many people did we have on that site, Darren? 300 to 500 people at one time. I mean, I'm not even. Yeah, we had a ton of people. We staggered start and stop times so that we could get crews through. But just that amount of people, and then where do you put them? And it's cold outside, and how do you scan? So they created this tent that people will be going through, and it's not a congregation area by any means, and it's open air, but it's still heated enough that the devices are going to work well. But that's one of the pitfalls with these temperature scanners. The ambient air can really be a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Another area of technology, I guess. I don't know if it's technology so much, but right now with when COVID started, things were getting warmer outside, and we were opening up job sites and letting air through. And now we're in the exact opposite. We buttoned them up and kind of confined ourselves somewhat. People getting the challenges now with people congregating, the workers congregating for lunch, for breaks, because they want to get warm. And how are we meeting those challenges? Some ideas, of course, are the ventilation. There's also some UV light that's been out there, and we're also talking about those backpacks that folks are spraying the air to kill COVID in the air and on surfaces overnight. So are you guys seeing that as a challenge? And if so, how are you addressing it?
Yeah, I can take that, Bob. We've experienced that on a couple projects, and certainly, started with the big items with, removing job trailers where possible. Encouraging the guys to take breaks out in their vehicles. Certainly the big room gatherings are, that's a thing of the past, at least this past year. So between those two things, encouraging that social distance, and we actually have a couple projects where we hit the timeliness of it, where we finally got heat in the building. We can still maintain, the temperatures where we need to, but I think the biggest thing is discouraging the carpooling, heat in your car if you can, and just get rid of the break rooms in the job trailers. So we've actually have, even in our job offices, we have signage on the door, maximum occupancies. We have our chairs marked with an X, and you can't leave that X. So we've sort of integrated the social or the protocols to help our folks.
Hey, Darren, along those lines, you mentioned taking breaks in vehicles. Have you folks implemented any new procedures for cleaning company vehicles, cleaning and disinfecting?
Yeah, certainly. On a few projects, we've done weekly fogging of a few projects. So, and we're talking, hundreds of thousands of square feet. So it's quite an undertaking. We have a laborer who essentially goes around throughout the day with a checklist of things to clean. So it could be the common areas, door handles, doorknobs, porta-john handles, handrails, things like that. And we have that person, that's their designated job is to clean, really. So between that and bringing in that third party contractor, that's been what we've used, and I think we've had some decent success with it so far.
Good. Hey, Don, how about at Quandel? I mean, what can you walk us through your cleaning and disinfecting? I know when COVID started, it seemed like, anything you touched was gonna give you the virus, and then we kind of relaxed that, but it seems like maybe now we're picking it back up. So what do you folks do with your
Yeah,
cleaning?
well, when back in the spring, we were shutting down the job sites, cleaning it for 24 hours, after 24 hours. And of course, we're not doing that anymore since, Dr. Fossey said it wasn't really, surface contamination wasn't that big of a concern. But we have, we had our challenges with guys taking breaks and sitting in the same room and also sitting in the same vehicles. And we put a stop to that. And anytime any of our superintendents catch that, they nip it in the bud. So it's a challenge because I know the guys are used to having lunch together, but for the most part, during the summertime, they were all, sitting in chairs 6 feet apart from each other. So that was good. But now that it's cold again, occasionally catch them in trucks together,
Sure. So I'm gonna wake up John and throw something at him. I want to talk a little bit about vaccines and where we're at with that. So, John, I know we're 1A, 1B, 1C, and we're looking at how much emphasis we can put on construction as far as being essential. And if construction workers are going into healthcare facilities, then it seems to make sense they should be vaccinated and that sort of stuff. So can you talk a little bit about KCA and GCAP's efforts in those areas with the vaccine and where we're at with the construction?
Yeah. So, and there are some government officials on the call here. I see Matt Kegg from Labor and Industry, and a handful, dozens of others signed up. But I think Senate session is still running right now, so a lot of the personnel assigned to the state Senate, they're not able to join us. But as Bob mentioned, the vaccine construction is 1C. And early on, like Bob mentioned about, if you're a healthcare worker, you would be 1A because that's where healthcare is. That's what we kept hearing, but we never got that official word. We never got the official word that that's the way it's going to play out. So as of right now, we're still 1C, and we kept hearing last week the big announcements coming, the change, for our industry. And the only announcement that came last week was citizens over 65. So any members of our workforce over 65 would move up to 1A. It would be part of the top group. Today there was, a press conference with the new secretary, Alice Beam, held her first press conference, and the vaccine was a large part of the conference, or a large part of the press conference. I unfortunately had some meetings today, so I haven't been briefed on what was discussed. As I mentioned, there's some government officials on the call here today, so if you guys heard anything, feel free to chime in, raise your hand, and unmute yourself, let us know. But as of right now, we're 1C, and workers over 65 are 1A.
Good. Tom Scott, you had some information you could share with your.
Yeah, some of our customers have reached out to us and they have vaccination programs. And those customers are allowing us to join their programs if we're actively working in their facility, because they want everybody in that facility protected. So we are getting that. Some of my people have already started getting shots.
Great. Yeah, I think that, one thing we did learn last week from Senator Costa, I believe it was, at a town hall, that, the 1A, 1B, 1C are kind of guidance, not requirements, the recommendations. So there are opportunities for, situations like Tom just mentioned, that, if you're in a facility that, there's potentially immunocompromised people there, then you should be talking to that customer about getting your folks vaccinated for sure. So I'd be reaching out to them.
Bob, we were asked by a large healthcare provider here in Pittsburgh if we would mind doing a survey of our employees and get back to them with voluntary vaccination percentage, how many folks would voluntarily take it if we were presented the opportunity, like Tom said, specific to a client, working in their facility. So We haven't sent that survey out yet, but we intend to do it here just to kind of pool our people.
Yeah,
Understand.
that's going to be interesting because, there was a large client here in healthcare, provider here in Pittsburgh that required flu shots, construction workers this season. And, you could object on religious grounds or medical reasons. And we got thousands of new Jehovah Witnesses, as I was saying, but we had a lot of guys who objected to taking the flu shot. So this COVID vaccine is going to be interesting to see how they react to that. So yeah, I'll be interested in that, Mike. That's for sure. So Don, you guys seen anybody vaccinated with your
Yeah,
group?
our hospital projects, the hospitals has let our guys get vaccinated with their personnel, Hershey Med and Geisinger and also PMC. So, yeah.
Great. Darren, you got a lot of medical work, I believe. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, we haven't had the same response, although we're starting those talks, and but we haven't officially rolled into situations where we're working in occupied healthcare facilities. So I think it's going to be sporadic. I think there's going to be a few of our clients that are certainly at the forefront of that discussion as we work closer to an occupied facility or we're renovating and so forth. So it's coming. It feels like we have a weekly COVID call here, and sort of update everyone on statistics, changes, CDC guidelines, and that's happening on Thursday, and that'll be at the top of the list to discuss. So generally we're getting there, but nothing different from what I've heard.
So with workers getting vaccinated now, that opens up some new questions. So you have a guy who's received both doses, and he's probably 2 weeks past the second dose, so he's reached that what they're calling that 95% efficacy, and he's protected. What do you do when he shows up with a fever? Is he then sent home for the day, or do you look at it and say, well, this is probably unrelated to coronavirus? So has anybody thought that far in advance?
Ask your doctor for a note. That's
Yeah.
all you can tell. I mean,
And the other one we have to look at, and John, maybe this is something that you need to carry, is we have the travel restrictions, and now if you have the vaccine and you've reached that 95% point, and you go to Maryland for the weekend, are you required to test or quarantine to get back in? I just don't know the answer to that. So there's new ones coming down the pike there, that's for sure. So.
And Bob, to expand on that too, the employee that you said that has the vaccine, they're at the 95% efficacy. They don't have symptoms, but they are a close contact.
Yeah.
Do you let them come to work even though they're a known close contact because they're vaccinated, or?
Yeah.
Because and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, they're saying, hey, the vaccine is going to protect you from getting COVID. We don't know whether it prevents you from transmitting it to somebody else, though.
Right.
That's my understanding of it. So if that guy's a close contact, maybe you're not worried that he's going to be sick, but what about the 5 other guys he works with?
Correct.
Could be transmitting. So
Yeah, you're
hopefully
right.
we can get some guidance out of the medical professionals on that one.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because it's opened up a lot of questions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I've read and heard, they're still recommending use of masks even after you get vaccinated because they feel that you could possibly still transmit the virus.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be with us for a while. Hey, let's talk a little bit about OSHA. These if it's a work-related exposure to COVID, it's OSHA recordable, and of course in the medical field, nurses and that sort of thing, I think it's pretty reasonable to determine that was work-related or not. It's a little tougher in construction. Has anybody had definitive proof that a COVID case was work-related to your site, and if so, is it recordable for you? Did anybody run across that yet?
I've I've examined every case, and we're expected to do a thorough investigation of each one to understand the circumstances behind the person's activity and inside of work and outside of work. And that's cumbersome because you hate to ask people personal questions like that. Hey, have you left your house, in the past week or so? And they just start looking at you. But there's a way to have that conversation with people, and each one's different. Each person's different how you approach that conversation. But you have to dig into each one because it's not always as clear cut as, hey, Mike was a close contact to Bob, or, it's obviously related because that's one situation that may have happened on our job site. Right. So it has to be clear, and it has to be, properly investigated, each case.
For sure. Hey, I moved off a vaccine while there was still a question in the chat, and I want to get back to it. And it was about whether or not you can require vaccines, the employees that take the COVID vaccine to, is it legal or not? Now, we did have a webinar a few weeks ago with one of our attorney firms, law firms, and they indicated that yes, you can require it based upon the current law out there. Of course, there are those religious exemptions that are still out there, medical exemptions, those sorts of things. So has anybody dug very deep into that as far as what your program is going to be, as far as requiring it, either of your field people, your office people, anybody along those lines?
Can't say we've gotten that far yet, Bob. It's definitely something we need to consider, and depending on who our client is, what projects, and our level of personnel qualifications and who we expect on certain projects. So we haven't dove too far into that yet, but that's coming as well.
As far as an owner requiring it, I think the guidance we got there was that if it's in the contract, they need to put it in the contract. So in order for it to actually stick with you, so we'll be looking for those for new jobs. So, Tom?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to add, as far as the vaccination question, we talked to a couple of attorneys, on various KCA project or association event related stuff. And the attorneys told us, we would advise you to strongly encourage the vaccine, but don't make it mandatory or require it. And some of the trades that we talked to, Michael and some of his attorneys, at Cohen and Siglius, they talked to our membership a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, and they strongly encouraged it. And then in some of the content, some of the labor talks with some of the labor unions, we're hearing from some of the reps out in the field that their workers probably need that encouraging, and they're getting kind of a mixed feedback from the workers about whether they want to get it or not. So I'd like to hear from Mike Penrod if they go ahead with that survey, what they come back with. And just last week with Dave Plutt, he hosted a apprenticeship committee meeting, and a handful of the carpenter reps were saying that too, about as far as they're hearing from workers that, hey, I don't know if we want this vaccine. So just try to chime in.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of questions around the flu shot that we've had for years and years. So now we have this new vaccines out there. I can certainly understand people's hesitation. So I don't think it's going to be widely accepted. I think it's going to take a big industry effort to encourage that for sure. So, Tom, do you have something to say?
No, pretty much you mirror what you guys said. We're not going to require it internally. We're treating it just like the flu shot. And some customers or job sites are going to require it. And it's up to the individual employees to either say, I'm going to go to work or I'm not, based on that protocol. We call the union hall and we let them know, hey, we need 5 or 10 pipe fitters willing to get a COVID shot. And if they're not, then we'll look for 5 more.
Yeah. Right. Good point. Hey, we got about 10 minutes left in our hour, so I just wanted to go through the 4 panelists and get your opinions on what we're going to see in the future. We really changed the way we operate on our sites now with masking and cleaning and limiting size of gatherings, all those sorts of things. And, as we get out of this pandemic and, maybe 5 years from now, what do you think we're still going to see? We had asked this question in a National Safety Council event we had about a month ago. And then, the one guy was like, I really like not being sick. So I think I'm going to keep wearing a mask when this is over. And I thought, well, that's a good point, but I can't wait to get this mask off. I can tell you that it's driving me crazy. So I'm just curious, looking into the future, what you see, if the cleanliness, the hygiene and that sort of thing is going to stick with us or what the case might be. Darren, I'll start with you if you could give your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think along the lines of probably technology, Bob, when we started this back in March timeframe, April, we were forced into this, working virtually or working from home. Here we are on Zoom today, go-to meetings. I think a lot of that is going to stick around for us. We're starting to encourage more and more workers, whether it's project managers, owner reps. If we have meetings, let's try to do it virtually and minimize the getting together for a couple of reasons, not only just the, obviously the pandemic, but just from an efficiency standpoint and accomplishing what we need to with minimal travel and things like that. Ty Reed and myself and a couple of other safety reps within the Brooks family of companies, Mayo and Solos, who's up in our State College region, and Damon Walker's down in Shoemaker, we've kind of come together and talked about really pushing the orientation, our project orientations online, YouTube, whatever that delivery method is, send that out to our subs, have them complete that on their own time, maybe at home, maybe at work, wherever. And then that minimizes when they jump back onto our job site, that time of getting together, almost like a morning huddle, whatever the case is, we minimize that interaction. So we don't have the orientation that is typically 15 to 20 minutes. We may have a brief, hey, here's 5 to 10 minutes, here's where our muster points are, real specifics about the project. So I think that's something we'll probably take with us, as we move forward into the future as well. Just, taking advantage of the technology. It's going to probably improve at this point.
Yeah, I think people certainly got more comfortable using technology than they were, a year ago for certain. So could very well stick with us. Don, I'll go to you guys next. What are you seeing, the construction side of the future there for Quandel?
I certainly hope we can get out of masks. It's been a real pain in the butt trying to enforce it, that's for sure. We've gotten to the point where, if a guy's working alone, he can, not have the mask on, but if they get close to each other, they need to put them on. And even that's a challenge, but I just really hope that they go away for sure.
Yeah. Tom, how about you guys?
I wrote down quick 3 things that came to mind. Technology, like Darren mentioned, there's no more excuses why you can't make a meeting. I love it. We have full meetings now. Everybody's front and center. That's terrific. Then the next thing is cleanliness. I had a pipe fitter come to me the other day. He goes, "This COVID thing's great." He goes, "I've never been so healthy." He goes, "I'm always washing my hands." So there's a success story, right, for one guy. And then the last thing I have down is new respect for safety. I mean, I often feel good when I walk a job site. I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping guys out. But there's an inherent divide, between labor and safety. And, we're always out to get them. And that's something we strive for. I know most of us do, to try to break that divide and not have that wall build up. But this really, I think, broke it down because fortunately, I got to know a lot of these guys on a personal level that we work with through our union halls on a very close, intimate nature because of the situation. So I think there's a new respect for safety, folks, and what we're doing for our workers.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. And the cleanliness one is one that's, it's the hygiene on our construction sites now is so much better. You don't find many disgusting porta johns anymore, and I think that's one that's going to stick around for sure. So, Mike, how about you guys? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think to piggyback on the hygiene, the cleanliness, the indoor air quality, whether it's nuisance dust or the potential for COVID floating in the air. We've really upped our game with our, unfortunately, we're not that busy on hospital work right now. So I've got a warehouse full of negative air machines. So employing some of those on sites where we typically wouldn't have them, just, in an effort to move the air, clean the air from a COVID perspective. So that, and then the hygiene, the site cleaning, it's a nicer place to come to work maybe than it used to be. The technology piece, I think with the online meetings and stuff, virtual meetings, that's definitely a bonus. As a safety person, I'm always going to fall back. I don't think there's anything better than hands-on safety training, right there in the room, or right there on the steel, or right there on the slab edge. I don't know if I want to go so far as to be virtual training for the rest of my career, but the meetings, the orientations, the opportunities like that we have, I think those are all fantastic. I think they make it more efficient, make it less likely that somebody slips through the cracks. So that's a helpful thing. And then, probably the other thing, I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad, is, kind of, I don't want to call it employee isolation, but, when I've been at Rycon for 14 years now, when I started here, you go in a break room, you got 10 guys sitting around, they're telling jokes, they're talking about the Pens game last night, they're this, that, or the other. Now you go in a break room and it's 15 guys like this on their phone. They don't even speak to one another to start with. So I don't understand why the hell I can't get them to stay 6 feet apart while they're doing that, in reality. But we're pushing this less face-to-face interaction, keeping your distance, go break in your own vehicle. I hope that's not a detriment. I hope we don't get 5 years down the road and we got a bunch of, impersonable robots walking around our construction sites that forgot how to communicate or tell jokes, or, you know what I mean? Just the kind of camaraderie stuff that feels like it used to be a little bit more there in the industry than it is now.
Yeah. Hey, I went back through the chat, and there's one thing for the future that was asked here, and it's about the coming OSHA standard. Tyree asked the question. I'll tell you what I know in that, this standard's been written for 2 or 3 months already. It's ready to go. So we're going to see it sooner than later. And one thing we've been pushing for is don't make a one-size-fits-all standard. What we have to do in construction is a whole lot different than what they do in a hospital setting or a long-term care setting. Fine, basically, for doing these sorts of things. So enforcement at our ends, we're going to have to remain diligent on that. That people wearing masks and we have everything available to them that they need. So I wouldn't fear the OSHA this sooner than later. And it'll kick in. I think it's 60 to 90 days after the issuance. So we're going to be under this relatively soon. So just be ready for that. So I see we're up against our 1 hour. So I'll turn things back to John, and he can go ahead and wrap things up for us. John.
So I pretty much missed everything Bob said, and that was not on purpose. Our power just flickered off, and my computer just shut off and just rebooted real quick. So I'm sure Bob just gave the best speech ever.
No question. I complimented you throughout.
Yeah,
It was amazing.
Right. No, I heard everything up until you started talking at the very end. I just wanted to, thank everyone. I think the panel did an awesome job. One comment that stuck out, which is so very true. Tom Scott made the comment that because of 2020, there's a new appreciation for safety professionals and safety on the job site. And I can't agree more. So, you guys did a great job, and the workers in the field did an awesome job, and just the buy-in for total safety in the industry is awesome. And let's hope that continues going forward here. So I thought everyone did awesome. Thanks again. I have the speakers' contact info up on the screen. I'll put it on now again. So if you need to reach out to them for any reason, go for it. But yeah, thank you. Enjoy your day. And, that's all. Stay safe. See ya.
Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Tom.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was so weird when my Zoom just shut off. It's just,
That happened to me last night. Our power went out for like 2 seconds.
yeah.
And I thought it was a problem with my house right away. I had to call the neighbors, but it was everybody. But yeah, it was a boom. It was 2 seconds and that was it. So
Since I was hosting it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think you just ended the meeting.
1 hour, we're done.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Enjoy the night.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Bob.
See you.
See
Thanks.
you
Mike.
guys.
See ya.
Ah.